favorite television show of all time is, without a doubt, Mystery Science Theater 3000. It just came along at a very crucial time in my development, and it is, I don't say solely responsible, but it is largely responsible for the development of my sense of humor, the way I look at films and other artistic endeavors. And it was a very sincere show, in my opinion. It was just a lot of friends getting together and making fun of bad movies and telling jokes that made them laugh. You know, the host segments. You know, and I really dig that. It felt like a family project, and I will never forget the very first time I ever saw Mystery Science Theater 3000. I was a kid, as an elementary school, and back then, MST was on at 11 o'clock at night on Saturdays, so the second hour ran into midnight. And so getting to stay up and watch it with my dad on Saturday nights was a big thing, and it quickly became like a ritual and just a show I really, really dug. But moreover, I'll never forget the very first movie they ever showed on there that I saw. And it's one of those movies that has kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It ascended, there we go, into like B-movie legend status. It's one of those films that, you see it and you don't quite believe it. And then later when you're trying to recount it to other people, you just sound crazy. I don't know what you kids today, what with your streaming and your hula hoops and your Pokemon cards and your Dan Fogelberg albums and your communist agendas, you don't know from the joy of watching late night TV when they would run these old drive-in monster movies and the absolute nonstop parade of weird that came from them. And that's one of the things that Mystery Science Theater has helped preserve, are some of these more bizarre little films. And this one definitely fits that bill, and again became in its own right a bona fide cult classic. And I am speaking, of course, of Robot Monster. Robot Monster, the best way I can put this into modern day context is Robot Monster was, that generation's Birdemic or The Room. It was that movie that is so bad that every frame of it, every choice in it is so bad and wrong and backwards and confusing. And yet, there is something utterly charming about the entire endeavor that you can't bring yourself to hate it. You know it's terrible, but there is, the term I find I use a lot is there's an earnestness to it. There's an honesty to it. And I find that with a lot of those older movies that they used to do on MST3K is, yes, these were clearly bad movies, but there was something charming in them. There was an honest effort put forth, even though clearly they didn't have the budget, clearly they didn't have the talent and the technology, but damn, they were going to try. And Robot Monster kind of sits in there with the Ed Wood filmography as one of those great examples of that movie, of that type of film. Everything in this film is wrong. And it gets more wrong the more you think about it. And yet there is something wonderful about this film. So let's talk a little bit about it. So what is this movie about for those who have never had the privilege? Well, making a short story even shorter, essentially all of humanity, save for 6 people this one little family and a single dude, because there has to be a single dude so that he can romance the eldest daughter of the family. They are the lone survivors of humanity, which has been completely wiped out by an invading alien. Only one of them. The alien known as Hew-man, and he is a Hew-man from Hew-man. Like, that's the name of the planet he's from as well. So Hew-man is now attempting to wipe out this last little remnant of humanity so that his people, the Hew-mans, can come and, I don't know really what they were hoping to do on Earth, but, you know, they can come and have it. There you go. So Hew-man will persist in this plan, and that kind of rhymes, but he starts to have doubts because he sees the adult daughter of the family, and he starts to have stirrings and questions, and maybe he shouldn't wipe out her. Everybody else can go fuck off, but maybe he shouldn't wipe out her, and moral crisis and lots of blowing up. So that is the roundabout story of Robot Monster. I think one of the reasons I love this movie is it has the definite feel of something. You can see them all the time now on YouTube. You know, this is not an outrageous phenomenon these days, but back in my day, this has the direct feel of a movie that a guy got a camera and he got a bunch of friends together and they grabbed whatever props they could and they found an empty location and just said, we have a weekend to make a movie, so let's go. And that feeling just hangs over this entire endeavor from start to finish. First off, all of it is outside. It's all shot out in the open. There are no interiors. They're either out in the meadow, they're at Hew-man's cave, or they are at this little bunker that the family has strung up. Oddly enough, the cave that Hew-man is holed up in is actually a pretty famous film location. A lot of monster movies had their monsters hang out in that cave. The It from It Conquered the World hung out in that cave. I believe it's the same cave that the Blood Beast from Night of the Blood Beast was hanging out in. Most famously, though, it's the cave that the Batmobile drives out of in the Adam West Batman show. So the cave is probably the most famous person in this film. It has the most interesting film credits, which I guess means we should talk about the actors, these poor people. I've looked them all up, and they all, for most part, you know, they all had basic careers, you know, fairly long, you know, one-shots in TV shows and background characters in movies. And they're trying, God bless them. They're trying. But the acting here is nothing good. Of course, they have no script to really work from. Another sign that this was a, you know, thrown together, whatever we can do to make the film a little longer and seem a little bit more expensive, the overuse of stock footage from other movies. There's several times when they show, like, for no reason, apropos of nothing, they show like giant reptile fights from other monster movies. They show a fairly frequently used clip in these films of an alligator and an iguana fighting from the movie King Dinosaur, and it's fairly uncomfortable to watch because they're actually, like, you know, this is well before, you know, the whole no animals were harmed in the making of this movie thing, so they're actually biting and turning and killing each other. It's horrible. It's harsh to watch. And they also intercut shots of, like, these stop motion triceratops, like, fighting each other, and again, apropos of nothing, like, for no real reason. It's just there, and it's on screen for a long time, and then it's gone. There's also the weird use of really out-of-place voiceovers. There's several scenes where the adult daughter, who I'll call her by the actor's name, Claudia Barrett, and, you know, Blandy McHandsome are, you know, trying to fix the interocitor so they can, you know, contact people. This, you know, basically their view screen, and there's a lot of footage of hands like doing stuff, like just kind of touching a soldering iron to things, no smoke, and these voiceovers. What are we going to do if we don't get this done? Don't worry, we will. Oh, you could never take orders from me. Oh, you're either, what's the line? It's this really condescending 50s line. You're either too beautiful to be that smart or too smart to be that beautiful. It's like, whoa, dude. A great deal of this movie is watching the family talk to Hew-man on, like, their view screen. Like, the whole first part of this movie is them, you know, the Hew-man, you know, I will destroy humans. What are you going to do? And I will come and get you, humans, blah, blah, blah. And no, Hew-man, you will not do that. We want to make peace with Hew-man. We want to make peace with you because you've wiped out the entire planet, so we might as well, you know, let's be equals, because that's how that's going to work. But yeah, it's just extended moments of watching someone else's Skype call, which is really bizarre. And apparently, so this is something I always miss when I watch this movie, and I always forget about it, and when this scene happens, I'm like, the fuck? So one of the things they set up is that if they step outside, if the family steps outside this little bunker that they have, they can't make any noise because Hew-man will hear them and come get them. So right away, you see A Quiet Place, totally fucking ripped off Robot Monster. Totally fucking ripped it off. I would sue. Anywho, so you can't, if you step outside this bunker, then Hew-man will hear you if you say anything, and he's going to come kill you. Never mind the fact that this bunker has no walls, no roof. So if Hew-man is just walking by, he'll see you, but don't step outside and make any noise. And even that, you know, twice in this movie, both the little boy and Blandy McHandsome are literally right outside Hew-man's cave while he's talking on his interocitor to his boss, and Hew-man doesn't fucking know they're there. So, you know, maybe the bunker with no walls and no roof really does work, but don't talk out there. So I always forget about that setup, because in the middle of the scene, Claudia Barrett and Blandy McHandsome are out in the wilderness, and they have this extended pantomime scene. And it's I can't quite describe it. It is the most bizarre, just out of nowhere, they're like, and I always forget the setup that you can't talk when you're outside because Hew-man will find you. So I'm watching this, and just suddenly they just start miming. There's no dialogue. They're just fucking doing all these big movements, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And then you remember, oh, right, they're not supposed to talk outside because Hew-man will come get them. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. In this movie. and simultaneously nothing going on in this movie. But I think what elevates this movie above a lot of its fellows and into that cult status, into that B-movie Hall of Fame, are two major factors. First of all, you have Hew-man himself, who Hew-man is the greatest B-movie monster of all time. He is simply amazing. So if you haven't seen it, and you didn't look at the poster on the intro here, what Hew-man is a guy in a gorilla suit with a fucking space helmet on his head. That is it. A fucking gorilla suit with a space helmet on. And I remember very clearly the first time I saw Hew-man, and I'm like, what is that? And you can tell that this is just some director and his cast of cronies going through an old costume shop and going, what do we got? We need a monster. We need a monster. What do we have? What do we have? What do we have? There. Okay. Gorilla suit, space helmet. Done. But what really... So right away, visually, he is one of the most unique and immediately memorable monsters you are ever going to see in your life. And it's glorious. But what really gets you is the physicality of this guy. This guy has two modes in terms of physical movement. The first is when he's talking, because they have the problem, like a lot of these things have, of course, the action is filmed first, and then they'll dub the vocals over later. So Hew-man, when he's talking on the interocitor to the family or to his boss, he has these overly dramatic hand movements and shaking and this and reaching out. He looks like Sentai footage from an episode of Power Rangers. So on the one hand, he has extremely over-the-top arm movements. But then Hew-man goes for a walk. Which is my favorite part of the movie, by the way. Watching Hew-man walk. If this movie was made today, all right, if they were gonna, and by the way, I would love to see Guillermo del Toro remake Robot Monster. Just saying. Just putting that out there, Guillermo, because I know you're a huge fan of the show. But if this movie was made today, then Hew-man would be created one of two ways. Either you'd get someone like Doug Jones, and you'd put him in extremely detailed prosthetics and a really carefully sculpted suit. And you'd give it to Doug Jones because he's a mime and a dancer, and he is very physically expressive. Or Hew-man would be brought to life via Andy Serkis in motion capture, gear, so, a la Gollum or Caesar. And again, because Andy Serkis is genius, you'd get a very physically interesting performance. So that when the final creature was done, it would look and feel and move like something we've never seen before. That's not what they did with Hew-man. This guy, this poor guy in this gorilla suit, I mean, when he walks, when he moves, everything he does where he's not talking to the screen, he's just a fucking dude. He's just walking. He's just like, when he has to fix his space technology, which by the way is the billion bubble machine. They're so proud of this, it gets billing. It literally is a machine that makes bubbles, which if you're going to make a monster movie, putting a machine in that makes bubbles just doesn't seem like, the right road to go down, but what do I know? But he's fixing it. He looks like anybody when they're having computer problems, just like, well, the fuck do I do here? And when Hew-man goes for a walk, he's just not fucking walking. He's just walking. There's no attempt to make him move like a robot or a monster or a gorilla. He's just a fucking dude. And as such, I could seriously watch Hew-man walking for like hours. It's bizarrely hypnotic. It's just like he's just fucking walking. He's just like out for a stroll. They say this in the Mystery Science Theater version, and I agree with it. He looks like Baloo from the Jungle Book with a space helmet on. Like the gorilla suit is so big that his legs are like much shorter. So he's got these little tiny legs, just taking these little strips, and he's just walking. And because of this, Hew-man has kind of gained this reputation as like the blue collar workers monster. He's just doing a job. He's just punching in, punching out. He's just on the clock. He's not in a hurry or any shit like that. He's just, fuck it, just Hew-man. This is made even worse by the fact, as I've said, his name is Hew-man. Robot monster or robot man or something to that effect. But the German guy who plays the dad of the family has such a thick accent that every time he calls his name, he's running the two things together, so it sounds like he's saying Roman. So your monster's name is Roman. Just adding to the regular guy, he's the Peter Parker of movie monsters. And he's glorious. I love Hew-man. But here's the other thing that really sets this movie apart and gets people going, well, so there's other things going on here. And that is the ending and how this, the cop-out ending. I'm not saying spoiler alert. I don't give a shit. Knowing the ending is part of the joy of this movie. So you want to know how Robot Monster ends? It ends in the single greatest cop-out in film history. It's all a dream. The little boy, he falls over, and it's not sure whether he's struck by lightning or something, but he falls over, and he essentially dreams the entire thing. And people say, okay, well, this explains why the film is so surreal, because it's a little kid's dream. Why is there stock footage of dinosaurs fighting? Well, the kid saw a movie, and the subconscious is dragging it up. Okay, why is Hew-man a gorilla with a space helmet on? Well, that's the kind of thing a child's subconscious would, put out there. Okay, why does Hew-man have the billion bubble machine? Because they show the kid blowing bubbles, and he's wearing a weird space helmet at the very beginning of the film, and blowing bubbles. Okay, so fine. Here's the issue with that line of thinking. If you start to really look, so that explanation, goes a long way of explaining, like I say, a lot of the weird images in this film. But it don't explain all of them. And there's some that I think, if this is this kid's dream, there's some things he needs to work out. For instance, why is Blandy McHandsome constantly shirtless in this film? And shirtless at the most bizarre of times. In the weird wedding where he marries Claudia Barrett, he doesn't have his shirt on. And yet when they go outside, which, the most dangerous place, of course, for their honeymoon, he puts his shirt on. Why was he shirtless for his wedding? What's going on there, little Johnny? But that's not the most disturbing part. So also, of course, because this is a monster movie from the 50s, of course, Hew-man at some point needs to abduct the lovely young lady. He needs to abduct Claudia Barrett. Because this is a monster movie from the 50s, and if you have a monster movie from the 50s, you have to have a scene of some guy in a monster costume carrying a girl while she kicks her legs frantically and screams. It's the fucking law of the 50s. If you don't have that in your movie, that's how communism wins, and we never get The Shape of Water. Okay? So it has that scene. Okay, we can tie this back to the dream thing. A young boy on the cusp of puberty, the more animalistic side of a young man's psyche starting to assert itself, and going out and starting to show the first stirrings of interest in women. Okay, fair enough. Hew-man takes her back to his cave, ties her up, rips her dress, and I mean grabs her dress and, okay, little domination thing going on there. No judgment. I'm in no position to judge something like that. So, fair enough, I guess. This is not the first time this young lady has been tied up in this movie. The family ties her up as well earlier in the film. So, Johnny's got a preference. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Here's what's wrong with that. All of this is going along, and then you remember it's his fucking sister. It's little Johnny's fucking sister. So we see that little Johnny is kind of a Christian Grey by way of Jamie Lannister thing going on here. Yeah, in fact, a very weird relationship with both sisters in this film. So, of course, we have the, what's going on with his older sister, but his younger sister, Hew-man strangles to death and kills. Hence the term to death, because I needed to reiterate that, apparently. Which, again, kind of shocking for the time. I mean, even nowadays, you don't have little kids dying in monster movies a lot. If so, those kids from Jurassic Park would be in a lot of shit. So Johnny has kind of a bizarre variation on an Oedipus complex. He wants to murder one sister so he can possess the other, I guess. Again, a lot of these things, no judgment, but some things, there's some things in here that Johnny may need to see a professional about. You may want to get Johnny a little bit of help just for everyone else's own good. I think the dream thing was there for the same reason that comic book artists love alternate reality stories, because they can do anything and they don't have to come up with an ending. Or the ending has no consequences. It's just whatever you did, you can get away with because it's just a dream. That's how I think they got away with killing the little girl, because, like, well, it didn't really happen. It was just a dream. I still don't know how they got the ripping of the dress past the censors of the time, but, whatever. So yes, Robot Monster is a bizarre, twisted, weird acid trip of a movie, made even weirder when they throw in the twist that it's all a child's dream. And yet, as I said at the beginning, I can't hate this movie. There is something bizarrely charming about it. This feeling of, like I say, like you and your buddies grabbing a camcorder and saying, we're going to make a movie, we don't have a script, and none of us are actors, and we have a vacant lot behind the house to use as a set. What can we come up with? And what, we have an old Halloween costume to be the monster. What can we do? And I don't know, I have a great deal of compassion and a great deal of fondness for films like that, because again, that a lot of these directors and a lot of these actors knew they weren't really going anywhere. They had decent careers. The little girl, this was the only movie she ever did. But, they worked steadily, most of them, but none of them are household names. Nobody paid money to go see, the old German guy movie. I don't even remember his name. But damn, they tried. They really tried to put this over. They really did the best they could. And watching it, you can laugh at it, you can mock it, but in the end, I really can't hate it. If you're curious and you want to check this thing out, I'm not sure how you would. I don't know if it is on a streaming service or anything like that. You can see the original uncut version, but also the first season Mystery Science Theater version is decent. It's first season Mystery Science Theater, so it's not that great. The remarks aren't like scripted; they're just kind of ad-libbing a bit. But it's still a fun watch. So maybe this Halloween, try out a different type of monster movie and see if you don't fall in love with that just working class schlub Roman. All he wants to do is destroy the world and clock out and go grab a beer. All right, so thank you very much for joining me. We've got more coming, so have a happy Halloween, and as always, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.